Hello and welcome to NDTV. I'm Rohit Khilnani. Joining me in the studio is Shaheen Bhatt, whose book I've Never Been Unhappier is already out and I've read it. It's been a fantastic read. So firstly, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And a lot of people I know, Shaheen, have read this. And these are people who, I don't know whether they're not told me or not that I know of them as have gone through depression or something, but they all said one thing, that they related to many pages, many chapters. There were things that they said, this happened to me, so is this depression or was I going through a phase? Did you get a lot of this feedback from your friends, family and people who have read the book?
Yeah, I think ever since I actually started talking about depression full stop, I think the most overwhelming response or feedback I've gotten is people saying, oh my God, I've been through the same thing, or oh my God, that is so familiar to me. And one of the things that people have said a lot is it felt like you were writing about my life.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of made me realize that this is, see, intellectually we always know that we're not alone in our feelings and our emotions, but
Right.
emotionally it's only when you actually talk about things and share your story that on an emotional level you realize, wait, I'm also not alone.
Right.
Because that's when other people will come and share their stories with you.
So
The overwhelming narrative for me in this has been people coming up to me and telling me that this is something that they've experienced to some degree.
Right. A lot of people called you brave for writing a book. A lot of people said it's brave. I also feel that coming on camera, talking about something that you are going through, that you've gone through, is brave. But you say don't call this brave. Why is that?
I think there's a big difference between being brave and being honest. I
Okay.
believe that I'm being honest, not brave. I also take issue with being called brave for the simple reason that, depression is romanticized very highly, especially in the artistic community. It's romanticized.
Yeah.
It becomes, all people who create suffer to some measure, and it's a romanticized thing. And also, who doesn't want to be called brave? Everyone wants to be called brave at some point. And so then my worry is that by calling it brave, you're making it a desirable thing. You're
Right.
making people
Interesting.
want to have it. So for me, I'll always say it's the difference. I'm being very honest, but it's not brave. And also for me, I think it's brave maybe when people are talking about it when they're standing to lose something.
Okay.
People work in environments where if you talk to maybe your boss or the management's not going to be very happy with you talking about a mental illness, you stand to lose your job, your family is not supportive. In those situations, I feel like it's much braver.
Right.
In my situation, I did not stand to lose anything by talking about
Right.
it. There was nothing that my life was not going to become harder by talking about it. I was not going to be alienated by people. So it was not, for me, it was not an act of bravery at all. It was just
Okay.
honesty.
Interesting. Because you spoke about romanticizing things, another thing that is romanticized in this situation is suicide. Do you think people still don't know what they just go openly and share something on social media that someone committed suicide? Do you think one should be slightly very careful about what they say when they hear anybody committing suicide, and not so that they don't romanticize and publicize it like something positive?
100%. I think I mentioned it in my book also. For me, I think part of why suicide as a notion became so appealing to me when I was going through the worst of my depression was because I had read an article where it was portrayed in a very romantic way. It was portrayed like suicide is freedom.
You write that. Yeah, that's
Which
yeah.
to me was at the age that I read it was a very appealing idea, given how much stuff I was going through. I was suffering emotionally a lot, and the idea of freedom obviously appealed to me hugely at the time. So I think it's very important. I think people have become a lot more sensitive. You talk about trigger warnings now. There's disclaimers that people will always give. I think people have become sensitive, but it's very important to keep that sensitivity going. Make sure that when you're saying something, think of how you're portraying something, because especially people that are going through something, if you're depressed, you're very impressionable. It's very easy to sort of affect someone's thought process, and that's exactly what happened to me. So yeah, I definitely think it's very important to be sensitive.
Right. Why do you think it's romanticized? Like, when say someone much older, like Anthony Bourdain, or this happens a lot in the West.
Yeah.
People at a certain, after achieving a lot of success, everything, commit suicide. When we say that, oh, he had everything, he had the fame, he had the name, he had the money. Are these things that we should not focus on when something like that has happened?
I think it's become like overtly clear now. I think that narrative is slightly receding a bit, where people do understand, I think, that
Right.
it's not dependent on your circumstances. It doesn't matter. Because people ask me this very much. People will say, what do you have to be depressed about? Nothing. I have nothing to be, on the face of it, I have nothing to be depressed about, but still here I am.
Who asks you this?
People do. I mean,
On
from time to
and
time,
social
people,
media and everywhere.
from time to time people do, and I completely understand, because
Right.
if it's not an experience you've had, it is baffling, because for a lot of people, I have immeasurably hard lives that I do not have a hard life on the face of it. You know, I have the things that I take for granted, people actually struggle with. So when people ask me that, I'm like, on the face of it, I have absolutely nothing to be depressed about, and I completely understand that, and I completely accept that, but still somehow here I am. And imagine, despite having everything, it's still so hard for me.
Right.
So can you even think for a second what it must be for someone who has that, and then on top of that has so many other things to worry about? Yeah.
So hard life doesn't necessarily got to do anything with money or the things that materialistic things, right? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that, look, everyone has their own struggles. Your struggle does not invalidate someone else's, or someone else's struggle does not invalidate yours. It's like talking to somebody, if you have an injury, it's like telling somebody, it doesn't hurt, somebody else's injury is way worse than yours. It doesn't mean your wound is not hurting. It doesn't mean that does not hurt.
Right.
You know, you can't really, like, obviously there are degrees. Of course, some things are immeasurably worse than others, but it doesn't mean that someone's pain is not valid.
Right.
It is still valid.
Right. Were there times when people, because they keep repeating this, did it make you angry at any point that, stop saying this? Like,
No, I've understood for a very long time that this is just, it is, things that we don't understand, we're likely to fear. And I was of similar mindset for a very long time as well. It's not, I didn't think that what I was going through was depression, because I thought it was too convenient. I was like, what is there for you to be depressed about? It can't
Even
be
you
that.
thought that?
I thought that, because for a very long time I didn't have an understanding. I didn't know enough about it. It was always a part of my vocabulary, but because I didn't think it was something that could happen to me, I didn't do the research. I didn't read about it. And obviously now I've understood that that's categorically untrue.
There was much less information earlier. So were you also struggling? Because when you were, say, 12, 13, what made you understand that this is depression?
I didn't understand at 12 or 13. So at 12 or 13, I spent about 5 years hiding it. I spent 5 years not talking about it, because I thought in my head, it means I'm weird. Whatever is happening is happening to me because I'm weird. There's something wrong with me. I'm not like everyone else. I'm just, there's just something thoda off hai. I didn't ever think for a second that what was happening to me was depression. It wasn't until I went to a psychiatrist and they diagnosed me that at that point said, okay, maybe this is something else. But even then, it took me years to accept that it was depression.
Did people close to you, everyone close to you, did they understand this easily, or initially there was a bit of tug of war that why she be like that?
I think my mother has always had the hardest time with it, because she was the one who sort of had to deal with the day-to-day fallout of what was happening to me the most. Because dad was working, mom was at home more, so she was seeing me lock myself up in my room. She was saying that I was not doing things, I was not coming out, I was sleeping either too little, I was sleeping too much. And because I was a teenager, she assumed that she's being a teenager, she's being she's being spoiled, she's just being lazy, all of those things, which again completely understandable, because at that time I also believed all those things. I just thought I'm the world's laziest person, I'm the world's most spoiled, ungrateful person, because I'm saying I have everything but I'm still feeling like this. So I just thought I was ungrateful. So it took us a while, and I think my mom and I especially, we learnt about it together. We learnt about depression together. We understood it was a journey for both of us. So we both eventually, now over time, people have, everyone around me has gotten more comfortable with it. They understand a little more. They've understood how to deal with me on days where I'm not, I'm not feeling very good.
Right. And that was your mom. What about dad, Alia, others, Pooja?
I think so. When I first kind of started, for me, Alia was quite young. So even when I got diagnosed, she was much younger, because we have a 5.5 age gap. She was much younger. So I think it took her until also quite recently for her to fully cotton on to, the effects of what was sort of happening. And again, it was one of those things where it was, don't ask Shaheen to go out for dinner, Shaheen just says no. And they used to get, and she said it before, she used to get irritated also from time to time, because she was like, as much as you love somebody, as much as you understand, that irritation is very natural. You do
for a human being.
Yeah, it's very, it's crazy to expect someone not to feel that. My dad, on the other hand, see, he told me after reading my book, in fact, he's like, I just realized after reading your book that I've had it my whole life. I've had depression my whole life. So I think he had a more instinctive understanding of what I was going through.
Yeah, your dad is amazing. The things that he's written, like, he talks about, we'll come to that. There was a video that you guys are watching, and, where then suddenly you all say, like, oh my God, is that really you? What happened to you? What was that discussion like when you and Alia, you all were like watching this video? And
I just started crying, because the thing is, I completely forgotten that that's what I used to be like. I've been like this for so long. I became a very, I was very extroverted. I was very outgoing, and all those buzzwords that you hear, which are the complete opposites of what I've become now. Now I'm a more reserved person. I'm a quieter person. I'm shy. I'm insecure, and I wasn't like that. And I'd completely forgotten that I used to be anything but this. So when I saw that, for me it was just a big jolt, and I was like, oh God, like I actually have almost no memory of being that person. And I felt, for me it was a sense of grieving also, because I was like, I feel like I've lost a version of myself that I could have been had it not been for this. I could have been that person. That person could have maybe done a lot more things that I maybe felt like I was not able to do. My mother's always said it to me to some extent. She's always like, you never, what happened? You used to be so different. And I was just like, I don't think so. I think you're just saying that. But then when I saw that, I was like, oh God, yeah, she's right. I was a very different person.
Right. What about friends? Did friends understand? Because, friends would be your age. They would have not understood, seen things like that. Were friends kinda? Were they easy? Were they difficult?
So I have been very blessed with the most understanding and forgiving friends on earth. To be very honest, I didn't, aside from my best friend in school, I didn't actually talk to any of my friends about what I was going through. So in fact, it wasn't until maybe a year or two before the book actually came out that I actually spoke to my friends openly. It's not that I hid it. It's not like I went out of my way to hide it, but it was just not something that I was ever comfortable talking about. And I think for them, at one point, it was just more, she's cancelling plans a lot. She never wants to come out. She'll say she's going somewhere, but then last minute she's decided not to come. And again, like I said, I think that obviously naturally they would get irritated and go, because again, they're your friends. They want to spend time with you, and you're constantly not doing it. But I think despite that, they've always been insanely forgiving. They would always, no matter how many times I cancel plans, keep making plans. And now they're actually my biggest support. I can talk to them.
What did they say after reading the book?
I think all of them were just very shocked at how much I didn't tell them and how much I didn't talk about. I think across the board, everyone was like, it's actually quite amazing how well you hid all of this. And that's another thing I feel like I want to keep telling people is this is actually what depression is. You become actually experts at, on some level, concealing the worst of it, especially if it's chronic, if you're dealing with it for a long time.
So for a long time you hid it, and now is the time your book is out, it's out for the world to see, you're doing interviews, you're talking about it. Is it important to talk about it?
Yeah, I have been saying this for a while now. Talking about it has changed my life.
That Instagram post in 2016, yeah, that changed things for you?
It's changed. I mean, that's why I'm sitting here having a conversation with you. If I hadn't written that post, if I hadn't one day in 1 minute decided, chalo, I'm just going to talk.
If I can take you back before you wrote that post, what was that day like? What made you just try that?
It was a regular day. I was having a regular bad day for me. I was lying in bed. For me, what happens is I become very lethargic. I find it very hard to do anything. So I was lying in bed, and I realized I hadn't posted anything on Instagram for a while. And I was looking for pictures on Instagram that I could post. But every picture I was looking at was a picture of me, smiling or happy. And I went, wait a minute, I'm not actually feeling that. I'm not feeling happy right now. Why am I feeding into this thing of putting up a happy picture when what I'm feeling is not the complete opposite of that? And so I decided I'm just going to talk about how I'm feeling and see what happens. And I posted and I put my phone away. because I was like, I don't want to sit now and then obsessively look at what people are saying. 2 hours later, I picked up my phone and my phone had blown up.
Right. And till date, you get messages from
About that post, not even about my book. Till
Right.
date, I get messages about that post.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just the sheer difference, that just sharing an authentic
Right.
feeling.
Honest, something that you
An
honestly
authentic
share,
feeling.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I feel like we spend so much time pretending to be people we're not, pretending to be things we're not. We focus so much on the pretty bits, the nice bits of, you know, our lives and who we are,
Right.
that you don't realize talking about the not so nice bits actually are what resonates with people most.
Right. I want to talk to you about social media in a bit, but before that, let's finish the book bit, because another very interesting thing was, when this conversation between your dad and you, and when you asked him what's wrong with me, and he said nothing is wrong with you, and you then go on to say, but I'm sad, and he says it's okay to be sad, and you don't have, the society has made that okay, we all have to be happy. Can you tell me about this experience so that the viewers understand? Because it's great what your father explained to you. I really feel that this should go out to people, that what the conversation that you all had.
So this is like one tiny little tip of the iceberg of the kinds of conversations that I have with my father.
Sure, yeah.
Like, while I was writing this book, I realized actually how much of my ways of coping, my thought processes have come from him, the things I've learned from him, the things he's told me. So, I mean, this was just, again, it was a usual day. We were just sitting around and having, just talking generally. And that's when I posed the question to him. I said, what's wrong with me? I don't understand. Either everyone in the world is happy, and I'm not, which means there's something wrong with me. Either everyone else is pretending to be happy,
Right.
and that means there's something wrong with the world. So what is, what I don't understand what's happening here. Why am I constantly feeling this way? And he very simply told me, he's like, listen, there's nothing wrong with you. The only thing that's wrong with you is that you are constantly trying to be some perfect version of happy, and that perfect version of happy does not exist. Culturally, you've been taught that there is either happy or there's sad. There's no in between. And what I've realized on my journey is that there's so much more depth of emotion in between happy and sad. Just because you're not happy, it doesn't automatically mean you're sad. And also, just because you're sad, it doesn't also mean that you're not happy. Two contradictory emotions can exist side by side. You can be happy and sad on the same day. And also, I think happy is just a word that we've, again, idealized. I think when people talk about happy, I think what they talk about a little more is a feeling of contentment.
Right.
Because whenever I've felt happy, what I've realized it's just me feeling a sense of peace or feeling a sense of calmness. It's not me sitting there grinning from ear to ear. Even when you hang out with your friends, it's not like you're sitting plastered with a big smile on your face.
Right.
You're feeling a sense of, belonging, peace. And so I think the word happy has also now gotten a little misconstrued. I don't think we're looking at the word also the right way.
Right, fair enough. And so that's the book that you have to pick up. I really enjoyed reading it. You have to sign this later for me.
I will.
Another thing that I saw on your social media is like you follow news. Do you think that the negativity that's around during a phase in any country, say right now there's so much news happening, you share a lot of that your dad has very strong views on it. A lot of people say that, okay, I don't want to, during this time anyway, there's so much negativity, I don't want to go and watch a sad film, I don't want to go and watch a depressing film. Do you think, how do you deal with all this? Is it a good idea to switch off, or do you don't mind watching all this?
I mean, obviously it's not something that makes me happy. It's not something that, it's not comfortable, but I think it doesn't matter. It's very important for me to keep myself aware of what's going on.
Right.
There are days obviously where I think things do get to be a little too much, where I will say, okay, I'm going to step back for a day. But I also think that we're kind of in a position of privilege where we have a platform, and I think it's important for me to use that platform to sort of amplify any voices that I think need amplifying.
Right.
My dad does that to great effect. So I've really learned that, imbibed that very strongly from him.
Right.
So for me personally, I don't think it obviously does take a toll on my mental health, but what I do is it just makes me look after myself. I know I have to look after myself in times like that a little more. And the way I look at it is that it's part of my service. It's what I need to do.
Right.
I need to talk about these things, and
Right.
it's part of my duty.
Right, interesting. In India, a lot of people who are suffering from depression and many other illnesses that are connected and similar, a big taboo is on going for therapy.
Yeah.
So like, this person is going, that means, there's something very, do you want to tell them that, do you want to explain what therapy, how positive, is it a really positive thing for anyone who's suffering to go and step into that place and meet this person, or is it a very big deal that we make it out?
So there's two types of therapy firstly, or there's two types of doctors you would go to. You'd
Right.
either go to a psychiatrist or
Right.
you'd go to a psychologist.
Okay.
A psychiatrist is someone you will go to for medication. A psychologist is someone you will go to have a conversation with.
Right.
I go to both. I take medication and I'm in constant talk therapy where I go once a week and I talk to someone. I think there's a huge taboo around seeking help is because you think it implies something. It implies that there's something wrong with you. It implies that you're weak. It implies that there's a problem that you cannot fix. What I will say to anyone is therapy, talk therapy, if you go to a psychologist, it is nothing but an education in yourself.
Okay.
It's, I think, of going to somebody to learn more about who you are and the things that make you tick and the why you behave the way you behave.
Right.
Because we're very biased. We all think that we know everything about ourselves and how we
Right.
think. And I really didn't believe that I could go to someone who would give me any insight into myself that I didn't already have.
Right.
But I was very wrong. It is just someone who helps guide you through your life,
Right.
and it always helps to talk to someone.
Yeah.
It always helps to have someone to talk to about anything, whether you're depressed or not. I will say you should go.
Were there days when you've seen great results coming out of it?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
because I think we really underestimate the effect it has to just have a conversation with someone. And while you can talk to a friend, while you can talk to a family member,
Right.
they're too close to your life. They love you too much to not be biased. Sometimes you need someone, a third person, to
Outside,
give you a very objective perspective that your family is not going to be able to give you, your friend is not going to be able to give you. So for me, it's made more of a difference than medication has made for me. Talk therapy has made for me.
Wow. Okay.
And it's something that I do consistently to keep myself at the best possible level that I can be at.
Nice. You were talking about social media earlier. Has Instagram also done enough damage to a lot of youngsters out there in different cities trying to just get that perfect look, the perfect body, the perfect, there are filters that will make us look fair. Is this adding a lot of pressure on the youngsters?
Yeah, absolutely. It's adding pressure on everyone. I don't even think it's just young people.
It's-
I think anyone who's on social media, whether you're young or older,
Right.
it's adding, because I think what it's doing is, there was a time when we grew up anyway, if someone went on a holiday, you didn't see it, you heard about it later. Somebody will come and tell you, or then you have to wait for the pictures to go to the studio to get ready, and then they'll show you an album.
Right.
It was not constantly stuff going up where you have that idea of FOMO. I really think has come from social media, because you're constantly in real time seeing things that you're not a part of,
Right.
things that you're missing. Somebody will go to a party and you're like, oh, I have not been invited to that party. You're constantly seeing the clothes people are wearing, the bags they have, the cars they're driving, things that they don't have, that you don't have that they have, which earlier you did not have that much access to. For that, you'll have to pick up go spend money on a magazine,
Right.
or turn on the television, and here it's in your pocket every day. So I definitely think it's adding a level of anxiety and inferiority that people are feeling.
Is that even tougher for you because you have more people around? Someone like you have so many people who are around who are always hobnobbing with other stars and film industry.
Yeah, of course. I think it's hard for me, like it would be hard for anyone. I think I've gotten to a point now where I've sort of trained myself to be a little more immune to it. I don't
Right.
read comments. I don't look at all these things. If I'm feeling something is impacting me negatively, I will mute the account. I will not look at,
Right.
So I think I take a little more care, and I've sort of, what I've understood is that it's not real.
Right.
It's not a depiction of everyone's real life, because then I've also spoken to plenty of people who have these seemingly perfect lives, and I know what the behind the scenes of their lives
Right.
actually look like,
Right.
because I'm able to have these conversations. So I think what I've understood is that it's not real, and it's not to be taken that seriously, but it still
Right.
doesn't make it any less contentious.
True. Great. So this was a lovely conversation. Thank you so much. A lot of, and like you said, you have your father to go to who speaks so well. I tell everyone every time I go to his office and I come out, there's something I learn, something that I didn't expect. So good, you have that support, and you wrote this book, which is an eye opener for so many people. Like I said, everybody who I've met and my very close friends have read it. My family has read it, and they all could take out a page and say, "This is my life." So the fact that you touched everyone's God in this way, really congratulations.
Thank
and
you.
hope this does very well. And you're also a screenwriter,
Yeah.
so hope to see some great work in the near future.
Maybe someday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.